Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and we have now reached 2008 in our exploration of Asian horror movies. We're going to cover 36 movies from this year, most of which I enjoyed. It was a pretty good year for the industry. But first, we have some honorable mentions, of course. And remember, these are movies that some people classify as horror films, but I personally do not. Some really good ones are The Chaser, a dark thriller from South Korea, Orochi, a supernatural drama from Japan, and Goth, Love of Death, a dark drama from Japan. I definitely recommend those. A few that I did not like were Onichimbara, a Japanese action flick with some zombies tossed in, Accuracy of Death, a Japanese drama about the Grim Reaper, Suzuk, a Malaysian thriller drama, Children of the Dark, a dramatically nasty Japanese film about child abuse, and The Burning, a Japanese drama about two pyrokinetic sisters. So I do not recommend those. Alright, so let's get cracking on 2008 in Asian horror. I attempted to research a few of these movies like I normally do, just to kind of refresh my memory regarding the storylines and characters, but a few of these films seem to have been wiped off of the face of the planet. I'm talking almost no information, like anywhere on the internet, for a few of these movies. And in some cases, that's probably a good thing. But that did not help me in preparing for this video because, I only remember so much about these stink bombs. And this was 2008, so that's 8 years ago. Although, of course, some of them I saw after 2008, but still. But I shall do my best. And as always, titles for all of the movies I discuss will be listed in the description box below. So the worst Asian horror film from 2008 is a fairly easy one, I think, in this case. It's one of those movies that you watch, and you simply cannot believe just how much of a waste of time it turned out to be. And that is 9+1, a Japanese horror thriller. You probably have never heard of this, and there's a reason for that. So 1 year ago, 10 young ladies participate in an audition for a musical. But the most talented girl goes missing during the audition. Now, 1 year later, the remaining 9 girls meet in a desolate area to go over their acting chops and talk about stuff. But this is a horror film, so you know some bad stuff's going to go down. And it certainly does, because a terrible slaughter has been prepared for them. But how does it relate to the missing girl? You can probably guess. So Japan, as we've seen if you followed me during this whole playlist, they do make quite a few low-budget horror films. And we're talking micro-budget horror films in some cases. And this is another one of those, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But in this case, it kind of is. It's also one of the worst Japanese horror films I've ever seen. Yeah, it's that bad. It feels like a really crappy student movie made on the fly with poor acting, a derivative script, terrible sound effects, and really, really bad dancing on display. Yeah, you get a few bad dances in this. Almost the entire runtime of this film is spent watching a group of teen girls bicker in a conference room. That's basically the movie, for the most part. That is no overstatement either. I'm being serious. The final half hour then contributes one of the absolute worst slasher sequences in motion picture history. Now, if you watch your fair share of slashers, you probably have a good idea of what I encountered here, because you've probably encountered this yourself. Because some of the low-grade slashers can get pretty bad. If not, let me describe it for you. Okay, the death scenes in this final section of the film are hopelessly tame. There is no suspense established whatsoever. The pursuits between the antagonist and the protagonist seem almost dragged out and stall out during the critical moments where they should be at their most exciting point. And it's poorly directed overall. Now, this was one of the worst DVD blind buys that I ever had. 9+1 is one of the worst DVDs, and I still have it in my my collection, unfortunately. It was actually an HK Flicks purchase, which brings back fond memories of that website. I miss that website a lot, but man, 9+1 is just god-awful. If you miss this movie, be thankful. Just don't bother seeking out. Even if you wanted to watch it, good luck finding it. You'd probably have to download it, because there is no DVD anywhere, at least that I could find. So yes, 9+1. Terrible. Now the next film we have tonight is not that much better, and it's a Taiwan co-production, and it's called The Fatality. So a deformed Taiwanese dude miraculously wakes up inside the body of a Thai man. Okay, so this guy was Taiwanese. Now he's a Thai dude. So this new body that he's somehow entered into has a very beautiful wife and a supernatural job that's akin to the Grim Reaper. So the two souls, this guy who took over the man's body and the soul of the man whose body was taken over, kind of compete a little bit for control of this body. That is kind of developing supernatural powers over life and death. So it's definitely an odd scenario that could get interesting, but this guy, he originally was an unsuccessful businessman who attempted suicide. Then he wakes up in the body of this other guy who was a coma victim, so that's kind of the premise, in Bangkok, who has a much better life, where he works as, this supernatural, he almost like stamps the death certificates of ghosts. So the ghosts will come up to him and he stamps their death certificate. That's basically his job. Kind of an interesting premise, like I said, something a little bit different, but some of the elements here have already been explored in some of the films we've already covered, and I can't really say which films because it would be kind of spoilerish. One of these films, regarding this body swap thing, was a Korean film that we covered from 2004, so I'll just leave it at that. Unfortunately, within the first 5 minutes of Fatality, you might get the distinct impression that this film is going to be terrible, and you would be correct in that assertion. The scare tactics are lazy. There's a huge emphasis on cheap jump scares in this one, and false jump scares where no real danger is present. I mean, it's bad enough if you throw cheap jump scares at me, but if there's no actual danger there, it's even worse. It just exponentiates the incompetence of everything. The characters also yell in a badly acted way at times. They don't do good with expressing emotion in this. I actually laughed a few times where they were scared. Script is very weak, meaning that the mystery components, which are essential to the storyline, just fail to engage the viewer. They're just not interesting. And all of the serious dramatic moments that they try to do are boring to watch, especially during the later half of the film. I remember the wife being conflicted because she started seeing some other guy while her husband was in a coma, but that aspect even is not developed very well. So the Fatality, I would skip it. I did not like it at all. Now, the plot synopses for our next two films I actually borrowed from Nako's Movie Litterbox website, which is a very good review site that covers some very obscure Asian horror films. So I recommend it, and I'll actually, if I remember, I will put a link in the description box below, because I assume it's a woman based on the setup of the website and how she describes herself. She does a very good job of getting some of that the very obscure Asian horror films. So check it out. It's a useful website. So the first film here, oh dear, one is Japanese and one is Indonesian. So the Japanese one is called Zombie Dead, also known as Zombie Dead. Now, if you thought that was the same title, it isn't, because the second title basically spells zombie, Zonbi. So I'm not sure why they spelled it that way, but whatever. Alright, so the plot goes like this. A beautiful female cop wakes up from a coma in a basement room of a hospital. She remembers nothing about the abandoned place because she is suffering from amnesia. She wanders around in the deserted facility and encounters a man who has just lost his memories just like her. They cooperate to find out the secret of the mysterious hospital, but there is one thing that they know about soon enough. Horrible zombies are lurking about. So can they escape alive and figure out the terrible secrets of this environment? I mean, who cares? Because you probably won't. So this is another very low-budget Japanese horror film that has lots of flaws to summarize. Yet it fails to provide enough fun to be watchable. You know, some movies might not be good in quality, but they're so nuts and fun to watch you don't care. This isn't one of those. It does not hold up in terms of overall quality or entertainment value. So first things first, there are a grand total of 3 zombies in this movie. Oh yes, 3. They put a lot of effort into this. 2 of them have really bad makeup effects. And 1 actually has no makeup at all. Yeah. Yep, I'm not joking. At least from what I remember, I'm not joking. They did not even try in this movie. Didn't even try. So the zombies don't even know like what kind of zombie they want to be in this one. 1 minute they're slowly pacing forward like a Romero zombie, and then the next minute they're running around like out of shape couch potatoes, kind of like a B-grade version of 28 Days Later. And that I actually think that a movie can work. You know, a zombie movie can work, and I don't know if I've seen too many of them or even one of them where you can mix up the different types of zombies, maybe based on how much their body has, corrupted or degraded over time. Maybe like the older dead people, the people that have been dead for a long time, could be the slowly walking ones, and the ones that are freshly dead are the running ones. Something like that would be kind of interesting. This movie, no, it doesn't do that. It's just random, and we only get 3 of them anyway, so it provides a poor explanation, or actually no explanation of why there's differences, so it doesn't even bother to explore it. It's not good. This is actually only about an hour long, but it still lags horribly. Real pacing issues with this in a 60-minute long movie. Just because there's most of those 60 minutes are just uninteresting filler and some of the most repetitive, annoying zombie kills in recent memory. This movie's bad. Skip it. Zombie dead. Man. Alright, so now we move to Indonesia. This is an obscure one. It is called Kesurupan. Alright? So, Felina and Alin, both 18 years old, are 2 best friends who are just about to enter college. So as college students, they have to join the campus orientation. But many incidents happen to Felina and Alin during this orientation process. Now, from what I remember, there was some hazing involved, so you know how that can get. Later on, our friends go to another event and make some questionable decisions, like wandering around cemeteries and playing with scary-looking dolls. An evil spirit possesses one of them, and they must scramble to undo the curse. Alright, this is not a good film, which is somewhat surprising, because it was directed by Rizal Mantovani, the same man who gave us the Kuntilanak trilogy, which, you know, the first of which is very impressive. The 2 sequels are pretty good. And we have yet to cover Kuntilanak 3, but I will get to that, don't worry. So, you know, with this director, there's always some semblance of quality to the film, and yes, you know, there are a few moments with some good atmosphere here. There are also some cheap jump scares that are quite annoying. There's also some unwatchable attempts at humor in this one. Bad attempts at comedy here. Really took me out of the film. You did get some of the white eyeballs that I like from Indonesian Ghosts, which I always enjoy. But the second half of this movie kind of transitions to a completely ineffective Exorcist-style format that just adds insult to injury to everything. Everything else just is kind of run-of-the-mill, so I do not recommend Kesurupan if you ever come across it, which I can't imagine you will. Alright, let's continue here. The next one. The next one was painful, too. This one was painful. We go back to Japan. Oh, dear. Alright, this one is called Now Showing. Alright, so in Tokyo, Shibuya, an urban legend of the love goddess is that a girl sends out her text message facing the sky. If she receives a reply, she'll find true love. It might be a true story, or it might be evil spirits which use this legend to attract their victims. This is a horror film, so you could probably think of which one of those options is presented here. But there's another urban legend at play here about text messages. You'll receive a text from a random source saying, "Hey, a baby is left in the locker near Shibuya. Please go and help. If not, just send this message in 10 minutes to 10 other people. If you don't follow, you'll be dead." So a curious girl receives this message and goes to the place to find the locker, only to find something horrific, of course. So this is actually an anthology of 7 short films, averaging 11 minutes each. Now Showing, of course, is what it's called. All of these involve an Onryo ghost girl who haunts various persons. The premise is cliched, the acting is generally pretty bad. The scare tactics fall flat on their face, one or two of which are laugh-out-loud hilarious. And there is no atmosphere to make up for any of these flaws. Now, the lead actress here you might recognize, because it's Aki Maeda, who was the lead actress in Battle Royale, and also contributed to some other good movies like Linda, 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 which is a music-based comedy drama, which is very good. But the funny thing about Now Showing is that it no longer appears on Aki Maeda's filmography on either IMDb or Asian Wiki. So, perhaps this actress pulled some strings to wipe it out of existence. A story perhaps more horrifying than the movie itself. But yeah, I can see why it would be wiped off of someone's filmography, because this is not good. Now Showing, don't bother. Some of these you probably never heard of. If you have heard of them, I would be interested in hearing. Put a comment in the text box below if you've heard of any of these, because these first few I'm covering here are real obscure stuff. Maybe the Fatality, I think, got some advertising online. So I would expect people to know the Fatality if you've been into Asian horror circles. But 9+1, Zombie Dead, Kesurupan, and Now Showing? Oh yeah. No. Alright, we move back to Indonesia now for this one. It's like we're just hitting Japan, Indonesia, Japan, Indonesia. So this one is also not very good. And that is The Virgin Ghost of Jeruk, Purut, also known as Hantu Perawan, Jeruk, Perut. So Nadia finds her boyfriend making out with her best friend. Well, that's just awful. They quarrel, of course, causing Nadia to fall off a building. Sometime later, she wakes up from a coma and proceeds to avoid her ex-boyfriend and former friend, understandably. She then rents an old house and is secretive about her new address, but she starts experiencing many strange, scary, and horrifying occurrences that the locals say is the virgin ghost of Jeruk Purut. Even so, she refuses to move out of the house because it's a horror film. But she eventually finds out who the virgin ghost really is. So yeah, it's a basic vengeful spirit murders a group of people premise. And it does not do anything particularly impressive with that premise. Big negative here is the editing. Every film tonight seems to have a different big negative, It's either jump scares, or dull filler, or bad attempts at humor. This one has bad editing, which is just awful during the horror sequences. In fact, it's so flashy, has like a rapid-fire flashiness, it's nearly impossible to figure out what the heck the ghost even looks like. That really irritated me about this one. Characters and storyline are thin, and there's almost too much lame sex appeal in the form of club dancing. Like, really? Club dancing? To be fair, there is some nice camera work and lighting at times, but the ridiculous number of poorly edited, cheap jump scares in this just really kill it. Not good. Just poorly. The horror is just so badly directed. You can't sit through this. Alright, the next one. We're just rolling through crap tonight. And we got another zombie flick. I got another zombie flick for you. Asian zombie movies, I've mentioned this before, just were mostly unimpressive for most of their history. But don't worry, because we do have some all-time classics that we're going to cover in future years. This will start getting, we'll start getting heated up on the zombie front soon. So stay with me on this, because the Asian countries kind of got their act together in the upcoming years, and they released some good to very good stuff. For now, however, we have to discuss Yoroi, Samurai Zombie, from Japan. This is a fantastic premise. Listen to this, and tell me how this movie could not be entertaining. A family of 4 on a road trip has their idyllic holiday turned into a nightmare with a bizarre series of events. They stop their car after accidentally hitting a man dressed in white. A man and his manic girlfriend then hijack the family's car, holding the father at gunpoint. But when one of the tires is punctured, the hijackers tell the family that they are in the land of the undead, and that the father must go off to find help, leaving his family with the captors. Now, sometime later, an eerie samurai warrior appears from a tomb and begins to hunt the family and its captors. The fugitives think to find shelter in an abandoned building, but more horrors and surprises await. I mean, come on, man. I mean, let's be honest, man. This movie should have been great. And even if it was of poor quality, it should have been entertaining. I mean, you have a samurai zombie, but it's not even close to even being good. It's not even close. This does have a few cool horror elements at play at times, like a samurai zombie, but it moves at a very slow pace and becomes boring very quickly. The fights between the zombie and the people are really lame and a big disappointment, which really hurts this movie because it seems to almost rely on these conflicts at times. It almost shifts from like horror to action, and the action is just terrible. Performances are meager, and the ending, I think, is really stupid. Now, I understand budget limitations on display here, I do, but Yoroi Samurai Zombie is lacking in energy, I think. And it seems to target all of the low-hanging fruit in terms of entertainment value. It doesn't seem like anyone actually really tried while making this movie. With the exception of like the makeup people who did the zombie itself, the Samurai Zombie dude actually looks pretty cool. I kind of like that. Everyone else just didn't bother trying. So in the end, this movie actually did get some positive reviews online. I checked just the other day just to see, and it does get some positive reviews, but I don't get it, man. I really don't. This one will just make you appreciate verses more. In fact, if you want a loony, low-budget horror action movie involving zombies that takes place in a forest, go watch Ryohei Kitamura's film Versus instead. I mean, skip this one. You know what I mean? That's my advice. All right, our next one here might be a little bit more well-known. And this is called End Call. Japanese horror drama hybrid. So this film is based on an urban legend. The devil has a phone number. Oh, that's nice. And if you call him on your mobile phone at midnight, he will grant your wish. In return, however, he will control your life for the duration of the call. Yeah, it's another horror film involving cell phones. And it's not a good one. When I saw the trailer for this one, though, I thought it had some potential. I saw some self-mutilation, some murder, decent cinematography, and no sight of the Onryo ghost girl at all. In fact, there are a few good death scenes in this to enjoy, and the twist near the end is a little bit different. Unfortunately, though, the big problem with End Call is that it has loads and loads of boring filler material to sit through, and it never really grabs the viewer in terms of characters or storyline. If you've seen any of my other reviews on this channel, you know by now that I don't always need character development or story development to enjoy a movie. But if the movie lacks those, you had better make up for it in other ways. End Call fails in that regard. I would also say that the second half is even worse than the first half. There's no point in watching this movie, I think. If you want an entertaining horror movie involving cell phones, just watch, check out Phone or One Missed Call instead. You know what I mean? End Call is just, it's useless. It's just a generic, it's one of those generic films that the industry churns out to cash in on prior films. So, skip it. Now we stay in Japan for our next two films here. Or actually, hold on here. We have Japan for the next one. We actually have Hong Kong for our final one of the evening. So we go Japan, Hong Kong. And this next one is called Twilight Syndrome, Dead Cruise. This is kind of a horror comedy hybrid. So a group of honor students on a senior cruise get trapped in an alternate reality game brought on board by their vindictive classmate. So this girl basically uses her mobile apps to make objects and monsters. She basically creates objects and monsters, mostly zombies and an amusing mutant character. And these appear out of nowhere to torment her peers. Again, another fantastic premise that you could be really creative with. But this is hampered by lazy, amateurish execution. I mean, yet again, we're confronted with a movie that seems like a bad student film. None of the death scenes are memorable. I mean, come on. This is ripe for great death scenes, and you don't even give me one? That's not good. The acting felt a bit off, just like any other low-grade slasher flick, actually, from any country. Why make this movie so tame and bloodless? I mean, come on. It makes no sense, given when I read the synopsis of this movie, I know what I want, and it doesn't give it to you. There's also no creepy atmosphere at all. You know, no good lighting or scoring effects or anything. This was really a great opportunity for some unique and fun moments, but just dropped the ball big time. If you want an interesting horror movie set aboard a ship, check out the British film Triangle from 2009. I would rather watch Triangle 100 more times than sitting through Twilight Syndrome, Dead Cruise ever again. Alright, our final film tonight, as I said, is from Hong Kong, and it's a little bit better than some of the movies we covered so far. The title's pretty terrible, though. The title is, Yes, I Can See Dead People. Yeah, that's the title of the film, from Hong Kong. So a guy who can see ghosts tries to solve the mysteries surrounding the odd behavior of his neighbors. Now, this is not your typical teenager. I mean, sure, he spends a bit too much time on his computer, tries a little too hard to meet the gorgeous stewardess who lives in his building. But recently, 3 of his friends have committed suicide, which, isn't all bad since, as the title implies, he sees ghosts. However, these suicides only foreshadow weirder things to come. So soon his brother and his stewardess, Crush, begin to act strangely, while his visions of ghostly children and other phantoms grow more frequent. He then sets out to investigate this haunted building's past and help these malevolent spirits cross over. Alright, so the problem right off the bat. Alright, too many cheap jump scares. And this one's a cheap jump scare film again. This movie uses little boy ghosts, like we haven't seen those, who do nothing but angrily pout all the time. An obese ghost who screams a lot, to incompetent effect. These lame tactics are used over and over again. Really grates on the nerves, really obnoxious. It makes it impossible to create any sense of fear or dread at all, and it's not fun enough to make up for that. There are 1 or 2 pretty good scenes near the end, but that's not enough to give this a pass grade. The way things get resolved is also pretty stupid in my opinion. So I do not approve of, yes, I can see dead people. I do not approve. Alright, so that's part 1 of our journey through Asian horror films from 2008. It was a bit painful. But be sure to join me for part 2, where we will finish off the less impressive titles and break into a few of the watchable ones. And, it's some of these videos, I think, I might have hit some obscure ones tonight, some bad obscure ones too, which, is kind of interesting to cover. Because, it's always fun to see what types of crap was produced in the industry as well. So, as always, we'll see you next time.